Welcome everybody to another episode of This Week in MXA presented by O'Neill Racing. This week we are in Huntsville, Alabama at the Dunlop Proving Grounds talking about the new Dunlop Factory Spec tire. That's right, Dunlop has been offering Factory Spec tires to the pros, to the factory riders only for a long time now, and those guys have gotten to ride with the premium rubber, the premium compounds, the premium patterns, and now it's finally available to the public. And today we're gonna shake it down here at the Dunlop Proving Grounds, and I'm pretty excited about it. All right guys, Chris Siebenhaar here, Factory Spec tires and some awesome Alabama red dirt here. Chris, tell us a little bit about this tire and how excited you are as a Dunlop employee to make it available to the public.
Yes, this is a project bringing this to consumers about 3 years in the making, from the initial kind of concept of us just riding on the weekend with John Hines from KTM. And it kind of started as an idea and took a long time to really get the legs going on it. And probably the last year was when it got really serious of like, this is going to happen.
Nice.
It's a spec that is available to all the factory level riders. It's the most common one that they universally like. Some guys like one, some guys like another, but this is kind of the outright one that guys like.
That's cool. And so it's exclusive to KTM dealers for the first year. So this is kind of a trial run for you guys, introducing a new tire. So it's not the first time Dunlop's ever done a exclusive tire like this. They already do this for Harley Davidson, but in motocross, first time.
Yeah, so like I said, with Harley Davidson, we make the OE Harley Davidson tire, the branded Harley, sold exclusively only through the Harley Davidson channels, through their dealerships.
Yep.
The main difference is those tires, we build them and make them to demand.
Gotcha.
So if 50,000 tire demand or 100,000, we will build what is needed.
Nice.
These there are only 13,000 that are going to be made, and that is front and rear. So basically, a 6,500 tire set.
Gotcha.
And that's it. We're not making any more, at least for the rest of the year. Everything is going exclusively through KTM dealership. So we're actually aren't going to have any. Everything basically comes in, goes to KTM, from KTM to the dealers.
Crazy. So KTM bought all 13,000 of these tires. Even if you're a sponsored Dunlop athlete, you're not going to be able to buy, or you're not going to be able to get these for free through Dunlop. You're going to have to go buy them from a KTM dealership. So very limited quantities. It was supposed to come on the KTM factory editions, but due to pricing and availability, they ended up making it just available to buy through the KTM dealerships. So it's not coming on the factory editions like we initially heard rumors of, but it's going to be available through KTM dealers. I'm going to ride it today, let you guys know what we think on the track, and talk to a few more guys here in Alabama. First impressions, I'm pretty impressed with the tire and the differences I can feel today. But it took me a little bit of extra effort to feel the difference. So I started out on the FC450 with the MX34, the production tire, and then I jumped on another FC450 back-to-back, same sag, same fork pressure, same tire pressure, and had the factory spec tire on there. So at first, I actually preferred the MX34 because it's a little bit softer, a little more cushion on some of the little chatter bumps that we have out here. And the stiffer feel of the factory spec tire, I actually wasn't comfortable with at first. So I liked the 34 at first, but I went back to back, just do 2 laps here, 2 laps there, 2 laps here, 2 laps there, factory spec versus 34, and now I could definitely see the benefits of the factory spec. Speaking of the benefits, I really have to tell you guys, it's like splitting hairs. It's very, very close how the tire performance is, and that's why it took me some time to figure it out, get used to the track, get used to these bikes. The biggest difference for me is just planted stability, and it just kind of feels like it's stuck to the ground. The factory spec tire is definitely a little heavier on the front end. It's also a little bit stronger, a little stiffer. So what that does is just less wiggle when I'm coming into corners, less wiggle when I'm on the front brake. This track has got a really hard base. It's kind of blue groove underneath, and then it's got some nice clay on top. But the corners are kind of sketchy. You're using a lot of front brake to get traction in the corners. And so with a stiffer tire, it took me some time to get used to that. I preferred the softer feel with more cushion of the 34. And then once I jumped on the factory spec, I realized the benefits because coming into corners, you're not knifing it, you're not making as many mistakes. Also on the rear end, it's harder for me to tell what's going on with the rear than it is with the front. It's a bigger difference on the front for me, but with the rear, a little less stepping out and a little just more consistent through corners, keeping that arc a little more consistent. All right, guys, so Brian Fleck, he's the main man in charge of Dunlop for pro racing. When you go to the Nationals, we're talking to Brian Fleck to get tires, but you're also in charge of all the factory teams and dealing with team managers, mechanics, and even some riders. So can you just give us a background on this tire specifically and how unique it is for Dunlop to now offer it to the public?
Yeah, we've been working on this tire for a couple of years at the top level with the guys.
Yeah.
And we first started racing it in 2002, towards the end of Supercross.
22?
Yeah.
Yep.
So then after that, we start tweaking it, trying to make it better than the current tire we were racing at that time.
Yeah.
And so then there's been several generations of this before we get to this final product.
Nice.
And we've been racing different versions of it. So we try to test with all the teams, with at least one of their riders.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that it feels the same on every bike, every chassis, and go from there. And then the factory guys have several options on the front tires.
Yeah.
They're basically different profiles, a little different carcass.
Okay.
It just gives a little bit of different steering feel.
Yeah.
Some guys want a real quick tip down, some guys want a little more stable and planted. So
maybe explain the differences of a factory tire versus a stock 34 that you could buy at the dealership.
yeah, the internals are different. The inside of the tire, the body of the tire is different.
Okay.
We use a little different materials, a little different construction techniques.
Okay.
And then the apex on the rear is a little taller,
Okay.
which makes the tire more stable. You don't get as much movement above the rim. You know, you'll see the rim roll down on production tires.
Yep.
You won't see that as much rubbing on the rim with these tires.
Gotcha.
Because it's not going to roll over as much.
Gotcha.
And that's, you don't get as much roll on the front like when you're scrubbing a jump. It just makes the tire a little more planted. It's got a different compound, but I think the carcass is the biggest difference between it.
Okay.
The compound's a little different, but not 20% different. It's just a little different.
For sure.
Mainly just for durability, make sure there's no tearing or chunking.
Nice.
But the carcass, I think the people just notice that it's more planted, more predictable for the duration of a moto.
Yeah.
Because Jesse did a lot of testing here, and we were doing 30-minute motos, and like the difference between 34 and the factory spec tire of how much it drops off. It's way less drop off in performance
Gotcha.
with the factory spec tire.
Gotcha.
And the worse the track conditions, the more the guys will notice the difference in the construction, that it stays more planted, it absorbs the stuff a little bit better. If track conditions are good, I mean 34 is obviously still really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the worse the conditions and the harder you ride the bike, the better the factory spec tire will work for you. People are willing to buy a factory edition bike because it's got better components.
Yeah.
So now we have a tire to go on a bike at that level.
Yeah.
So
That's cool.
Yeah.
The 755 RR, that was like 10 plus years ago?
56 race replica.
56 race
Yeah.
replica, yeah. So that was a spec tire before, but durability was down. And, a lot of our readers and our viewers will remember that tire. Even before my time, I think I was on 65s when that tire was around. But our readers will remember that. So durability was down. What about durability on these tires? Because we know the price is about 15 to 25% more. You're only going to be able to buy them through KTM dealerships for the first year at least. Yeah. So it's up to the dealership to mark up or down the price. But it's going to be more expensive. What about durability?
Yeah, that's why we didn't change the compound a lot, because the production 34 compound works pretty good.
Yeah.
We just tweaked it a little bit because durability is important, especially to the consumer.
Yeah.
So it's a little better grip, but also maybe 10% less durability.
Okay.
But it'll round a little bit quicker, but that'll be the biggest thing you'll notice.
Yeah.
In all our testing and race use and stuff, we haven't really seen tearing and chunking.
Nice.
56RR was also when we were doing concrete starts.
Gotcha, yeah. A little different.
And that was, compound was so important in that.
Yeah.
So 56RR, we went a little softer compound, and that's why it wasn't as durable.
Gotcha.
The other thing is now the bikes and suspension are better.
Yeah.
The tires have gotten better, but the bikes hook up so much better now that we don't have to be as extreme on a compound to get it to work as good. Because the suspension is so much better now. The ECUs, the mapping, the bike just hooks up better anyway.
Yeah.
So we didn't have to be as aggressive on the compound, and we could still keep durability.
I like it. Awesome. All right, so it's always a cool day when we see Ryan Dungey, not only seeing him, but also seeing him riding and on the two-stroke. So that's like 3 different wins right there. And Dunlop factory tire now available to the public. How cool is that in your eyes?
It's pretty a cool opportunity. I mean, this is like legit factory spec tire that that the pros are going to race with this year. And so it's just those little things, especially when you're competing at a high level and you're looking to get that little bit extra out of your lap time, comfort. These tires are a little bit more compliant. They're less bouncy on the ground. You don't get that rim effect.
Yep.
And so with that comes better traction, a little more compliant. And I mean, goes back to when I was testing with these guys. They come out to the Supercross track and we try stuff. So just all the data collected through the years to come to the tires where we are now, offer to the public, this spec tire is going to be pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You're a specialist. You could feel even just one click on the shock, one click on the fork. So
there's a noticeable difference. You know, when I'm coming into corners in the Dunlop production tire, it's more bouncing off the, you know, you kind of feel like it's bouncing off the bumps and you're getting pushed forward.
Yeah.
Where these are more, it's going to follow the ground and you're going to kind of get that grip, slow down. And so it's little things like that. If you're on the side lean, if you got a rut that's kind of harder, maybe a little slick, you're going to just have that little bit more bite. And same with the, you know, straightforward traction too. And to somebody who doesn't really push it, you won't see a huge difference. But like if you're very in tune, if you're racing and you're an A-class guy or pro or whatever, and you know, you can feel those little clicks we make, you're going to notice it.
For sure.
You know, and it's going to probably get a good half second out of these things.
I like it.
So a lap.
Yep. I like
which adds up, right?
Yep, exactly.
Over the course of 20 laps.
Yep. Yep. And that's what Jesse Wentland, Dunlop test rider, said, that over a 30-minute moto, he was consistently a half a second lap faster with this tire. So half a second doesn't sound like much when you're paying a little bit more, but at the same time, to get that factory experience and have it on your personal bike, I think that's pretty cool. I think it'll be pretty successful.
Well, you know, the factories, they spend, you know,
crazy money,
$7,000-$10,000 on titanium bolts to get the bike lighter. I mean, this is a little bit upcharged. I'm sure it's a couple, you know, 15, 20, 30 bucks, let's say.
Not too bad.
It's not bad to get a little bit more out of your bike. So
pretty
performance.
Cool. I like it. Yep. So super cool day hanging out at the Dunlop Proving Grounds. We got some street bike testing going on behind us. Pretty cool day. So riding with Ryan Dungey, hanging out, seeing Brock Glover here, Brian Fleck, everybody from Dunlop. My impressions of the tire, Factory Spec is pretty sweet. Definitely more hold up. One interesting note about the single radius tire. So it's a single curve rather than dual radius where it kind of curves, then flattens out and then curves again. Talking with the guys, the MX-34 is able to turn down a little bit sharper because of that front tire, the angle of the curve, where the spec tire, being a single radius, is a little bit stiffer in the front end, a little bit firmer, and it actually gives you a better feel, but also makes it a little bit harder to turn in the super tight and technical stuff. So the Factory Spec tire is definitely going to be something that faster riders are going to appreciate more, but I think a lot of vet riders and really average riders will be stoked on it as well. So cool first impressions of riding it here today at Alabama, in Alabama at the Dunlop Proving Grounds. Pretty cool seeing the test facility, just how much work goes into testing street bike tires, car tires, and dirt bike tires. Dunlop does it all. Thank you guys for having us, and thanks for watching This Week in MXA.